Okay, so growing up in the Peterson household was like being cast in a play where you're not even the understudy, you're just the scenery. I was Olivia, the other daughter, the one who blended into the wallpaper while my sister Claire took center stage, bathed in the spotlight of parental adoration. Claire was the golden child, the one with the perfect grades, the perfect smile, the perfect life that seemed to unfold effortlessly before her. Me? I was just there. Like an extra chair at the dining table or a decorative pillow no one ever actually uses. Olivia, darling, my mother would say, her voice a symphony of well practiced concern. Why can't you be more like your sister? She's so driven, so ambitious. You just seem content to drift. And I was content to drift through the endless social gatherings, the charity galas, the obligatory family dinners, where I'd sit quietly, my presence acknowledged with a perfunctory nod and a, "How's school, Olivia?" before the conversation inevitably shifted back to Claire's latest triumph. "Olivia, sweetie," my father would say, his eyes twinkling with paternal pride. "Claire's been accepted to Harvard. Isn't that wonderful?" "That's great, Claire," I'd mumble, pushing the peas around my plate. "You know," he'd continue, his voice taking on a lecturing tone, "you could learn a thing or two from your sister. She sets goals, she works hard, she achieves them. You just seem unmotivated." Unmotivated? Maybe. Or maybe I was just tired of trying to compete in a race I was never meant to win. Tired of being compared, judged, found wanting. Tired of being the spare, the afterthought, the invisible girl in the Peterson family portrait. It wasn't that my parents were cruel, not exactly. They were just oblivious, blinded by their own expectations, their own ambitions for their perfect daughter. They never saw me, the real me, the girl with her own dreams, her own desires, her own quiet strength. And as the years passed, the gap between Claire and me widened. She soared through life, collecting accolades, achievements, and a fiance who was basically a walking, talking Forbes list. Me? I was just Olivia, the other daughter, the one no one ever really noticed. Until now. Okay, so Claire's wedding was shaping up to be the social event of the season. Think Gatsby level extravagance, with a guest list that read like a who's who of the upper crust and enough champagne to sink a small yacht. And me? I was the bridesmaid, the maid of honor, actually, which, should have been a big deal. Initially, I was actually excited. Maybe this was my chance to finally shine, to be more than just Claire's sister. I threw myself into the bridesmaid duties with the enthusiasm of a caffeinated squirrel, organizing the bachelorette party, picking out floral arrangements, and even enduring hours of dress fittings with a smile plastered on my face. "Olivia, darling," Claire would say, her voice a symphony of bridal stress. "You're a lifesaver. I don't know what I'd do without you." And I'd smile, my heart swelling with a naive hope that maybe, just maybe, she actually meant it. That maybe she finally saw me, appreciated me, valued my presence in her oh-so-perfect life. "Don't worry, Claire," I'd say, fluffing her veil with the precision of a seasoned stylist. "I've got this. You just focus on being the beautiful bride." But as the wedding day approached, the cracks in the facade began to show. My opinions were dismissed, my suggestions overlooked, and my presence at pre-wedding events became increasingly optional. "Olivia, sweetie," my mother would say, her voice laced with a hint of apology, "we've decided to have a smaller rehearsal dinner, just immediate family and Claire's closest friends. You understand, don't you?" "Of course," I'd reply, my voice a little too bright, a little too cheerful. Internally, I was picturing myself crashing the rehearsal dinner, dressed as a cater waiter, just to see the look on their faces. Even the dress, the bridesmaid dress I'd spent hours agonizing over, was suddenly not quite right. "Olivia, darling," Claire said one afternoon, her brow furrowed with concern. "The dress, it's just not flattering. On you, I mean. It clashes with your complexion and your hair." "Oh," I said, my heart sinking. "Well, what should I do?" "Don't worry," she said, patting my arm with a condescending smile. "We've found a lovely alternative. Something more suitable." The suitable alternative turned out to be a hideous puce-colored monstrosity that made me look like a giant walking bruise. But I wore it with a smile, because that's what good bridesmaids do, right? They suck it up, put on the ugly dress, and pretend to be happy for the bride, even when their own heart is cracking under the weight of neglect and disappointment. And as the wedding day drew closer, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being relegated to the sidelines, pushed into the background, treated like an extra piece of decoration in Claire's grand production. But I held on to a sliver of hope, a naive belief that maybe, just maybe, when I stood beside her at the altar, my sister, my family, would finally see me. The real me. The one who deserved to be more than just the spare, the afterthought, the invisible girl in the Peterson family portrait. Okay, so being replaced as maid of honor by someone whose main qualification was owning a matching bride tribe tank top, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, the final insult, the ultimate proof that I was officially invisible to my family. But you know what? Screw them. It was time for Plan B, or rather Plan D for Damien. Damien Thorne, billionaire tech mogul, notorious playboy, and most importantly, my future brother-in-law's arch nemesis. I'd met him a few times at those obligatory social gatherings, the ones where I usually hovered near the buffet table, strategically blending into the background. But Damien, with his piercing blue eyes and devil-may-care smirk, had a knack for noticing the unnoticed. "You're Olivia, right?" he'd said, his voice a smooth baritone that cut through the polite chatter. "The sister who's not getting married." I'd almost choked on my canapé. "That's one way to put it," I'd managed, feeling my cheeks flush. "Don't worry," he'd said with a wink. "I prefer the underdogs." And now the underdog was about to make her move. I found his number. Surprisingly easy, the guy was practically a walking, talking PR campaign. Took a deep breath and hit dial. "Damien Thorne," his voice answered smooth and confident. "Mr. Thorne," I said, trying to sound more assertive than I felt. "It's Olivia Peterson, Claire's sister." "Ah, Olivia," he said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "I have a proposition for you," I said, taking the plunge. "A mutually beneficial arrangement, if you will." There was a pause, then a low chuckle. "Intriguing. Go on." And so I laid it out, the whole crazy plan. The fake engagement, the grand entrance, the stealing of the spotlight. I explained my situation, the bridesmaid debacle, the years of being overlooked and underestimated. "So," I finished, my voice a little shaky, "what do you say? Are you in?" Another pause. Then, "I've always enjoyed a good spectacle. Consider me your +1. We met the next day, hammering out the details over coffee. Him, and a triple shot espresso. Me, because caffeine was my new best friend. It was awkward, sure, but there was also an undeniable spark, a shared sense of mischief, a mutual understanding that we were both playing a game, but with very real stakes. "So," Damien said, his eyes twinkling, "what kind of ring are we thinking? Something subtle, or should we go full-on Kardashian? I grinned, the adrenaline starting to pump. "Let's just say Claire's going to need a bigger tiara." And as we shook hands, sealing the deal, I couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement, a thrill of anticipation. This was it. My chance to finally step out of the shadows, to claim my own spotlight, to show my family and the world that Olivia Peterson was not just an extra in someone else's story. I was the leading lady in my own. Okay, so imagine a scene, right? A cathedral decked out in enough flowers to make a florist weep with joy, guests dripping in diamonds and designer labels, and the bride, my dear sister Claire, gliding down the aisle like a princess in a Disney movie. The whole scene was perfect, picture perfect, exactly the kind of fairy tale ending Claire had always envisioned for herself. Until I walked in. Damien, ever the showman, had insisted on a grand entrance, no discreet side door for us. No, we strode in, arm in arm, just as the officiant was saying those "speak now or forever hold your peace" lines. All heads turned, the whispers rippling through the crowd like a wave. And on my finger, sparkling like a supernova, was the ring. Not just any ring, mind you, but a rock the size of a small moon, the kind that makes even the most jaded socialite gasp. Claire, bless her oblivious heart, was the last to notice. She was gazing at her groom-to-be with that love-struck expression that usually precedes a lifetime of marital bliss, or, a messy divorce. But then the whispers reached her, the gasps, the rustle of 1,000 heads turning in our direction. Her eyes followed the crowd's gaze, landing on me, on Damien, on the ring. Her perfect smile faltered, her carefully rehearsed composure cracking like a dropped champagne flute. My parents, bless their clueless hearts, were a symphony of confused expressions. My mother's carefully Botoxed brows furrowed in concern, while my father's jaw dropped with an audible thunk. They looked from me, to Damien, to the ring, then back to me again, their faces a hilarious mix of disbelief and disapproval. It was like they were trying to solve a complex mathematical equation, but the only numbers they had were Olivia plus billionaire equals sign what the hell. The groom, poor guy, looked like he'd swallowed a lemon whole. His eyes darted between Claire, me, and Damien, his face a mask of bewildered panic. You could practically see the thoughts racing through his mind. Wait, is that Olivia with, Damien Thorne? And is that an engagement ring? But Claire, the rest of the guests, well, they were just enjoying the show. The whispers escalated to gasps, the gasps to excited murmurs, the murmurs to a full-blown buzz of speculation and intrigue. This was better than any wedding drama they could have hoped for. Move over, Bridezilla. There's a new queen of chaos in town. Damien, ever the charmer, leaned in, his voice a conspiratorial whisper that somehow carried through the entire cathedral. I think we just stole the show, darling. I grinned, the adrenaline surging through me. The years of being overlooked and underestimated melting away like snowflakes on a hot stove. Just getting started, Mr. Thorne. I purred, my voice laced with a newfound confidence. And as the room fell silent, the tension hanging in the air thicker than a slice of wedding cake, I knew that this was just the beginning. The first act in a play of my own making, a performance that would rewrite the rules, shatter the expectations, and finally, put Olivia Peterson in the spotlight. Okay, so the reception was like a scene out of a high society soap opera, except with better catering and significantly less crying, mostly. The guests, fueled by champagne and a healthy dose of scandalized curiosity, buzzed with speculation. Claire, bless her fragile ego, had retreated to a private room with her bridesmaids, presumably to engage in some emergency damage control. My parents, meanwhile, were working the crowd, their smiles strained, their eyes darting nervously between me and the gossip-mongering guests. Damien, ever the master of the game, was in his element. He held court at our table, the one closest to the dance floor naturally, regaling a captivated audience with anecdotes about his latest business ventures, his philanthropic endeavors, and his surprisingly detailed knowledge of Renaissance art. You know, he said, his voice a captivating blend of charm and wit, Michelangelo was quite the party animal. Apparently, he once snuck into a rival artist's studio and replaced all the paintbrushes with sausages. The guests, their initial shock at my engagement, now replaced by a fascinated amusement, laughed, their eyes glued to Damien, their ears hanging on his every word. I watched him, a genuine smile playing on my lips. He was good, this Damien Thorne, not just at playing the billionaire playboy, but at genuinely captivating an audience, at making people feel seen, heard, even valued. And then there were the subtle digs, the carefully placed barbs aimed at Claire and her family, delivered with a smile and a wink that only I could decipher. Such a beautiful wedding, he'd say, raising his glass in a mock toast, though I must say the bride's dress pales in comparison to Olivia's natural radiance. Or, the Peterson family, such a pillar of society, always so supportive of their daughter's endeavors, especially Olivia's, of course. Each comment was a jab, a reminder of their neglect, their blindness, their utter failure to appreciate the gem they had in their midst, namely me. And with each jab, I felt a surge of satisfaction, a delicious sense of vindication. But it wasn't all about revenge. As the evening progressed, I found myself genuinely enjoying Damien's company. His wit, his intelligence, his surprisingly goofy sense of humor. Who knew a billionaire could quote Monty Python? It was all a refreshing change from the stuffy conversations and pretentious posturing of the usual socialite crowd. We danced, we laughed, we shared stories and secrets, our connection deepening with each passing moment. The fake engagement started to feel less fake. The glances lingered a little longer, the touches a little more deliberate, the smiles a little more genuine. You know, Damien said, his voice low, his eyes searching mine as we swayed to the music. You're not at all what I expected. And what did you expect? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Someone quieter, he said, his hand tightening on mine. More reserved, but you're a force of nature, Olivia, a whirlwind of wit and defiance. I blushed, my heart skipping a beat. Well, I said, my voice a playful purr, you did say you preferred the underdogs. He chuckled, his eyes twinkling. I'm starting to think I have a thing for the ones who bite back. And as the music swelled, the lights dimmed, and the other guests faded into the background, I couldn't help but wonder if this fake engagement was just the beginning of something real, something unexpected, something that could change my life, and maybe even Damien's, in ways we never imagined. Okay, so remember how I said the reception was like a soap opera? Well, buckle up, because things were about to get juicy. It all started with a hushed conversation, overheard while I was graciously accepting congratulations from a gaggle of wide-eyed socialites. Can you believe it? One of them whispered, her voice a mix of shock and delight. Apparently, the groom, well, let's just say he has a very interesting past. My ears perked up like a dog hearing the treat jar rattle. Interesting past? Now, this was my kind of gossip. I casually drifted closer, pretending to admire the ice sculpture, which, let's be honest, was a rather pathetic excuse for a swan. Apparently, the woman continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, he had shall we say, arrangement with a certain dancer. A very expensive arrangement. And it seems, no, the arrangement hasn't quite ended. My jaw dropped. A dancer? An ongoing arrangement? This was gold, pure gold. I glanced over at Claire, who was now back on the dance floor, attempting to regain her composure with a forced smile and a few awkward twirls. Poor Claire, her perfect fairy tale wedding was about to turn into a tabloid headline. But how to reveal this juicy tidbit? A public confrontation? A whispered rumor campaign? No, that was too messy, too obvious. I needed something subtle, something impactful, something that would leave no doubt about the groom's extracurricular activities. And then it hit me. The wedding gift table, a mountain of lavish presents, a testament to the Peterson family's social standing and the groom's deep pockets. Among the crystal vases and designer silverware, I spotted it. A discreetly wrapped package, addressed simply to Mr. Groom. I excused myself from the gossiping gaggle, my mind racing, a mischievous grin spreading across my face. A few minutes later, a hush fell over the reception hall. The DJ, bless his oblivious heart, had just announced the opening of the wedding gifts. Claire and her groom, their smiles now brittle masks of forced cheer, stood beside the table, unwrapping the presents with feigned enthusiasm. And then it was the turn of the discreetly wrapped package. The groom, his face pale, his hands trembling, hesitated. But Claire, oblivious to the impending doom, urged him on. Open it, darling, she said, her voice a strained whisper. He tore off the wrapping paper, revealing a sleek black box. He opened it, his eyes widening in horror. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, was a pair of, let's just say, very revealing lingerie. And attached to it, a small card with a single handwritten message. Don't forget our next appointment. XOXO Isabella. The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, and a few poorly stifled giggles filled the air. Claire's face turned a shade of crimson that would make a tomato blush. The groom, his composure shattered, stammered, sputtered, and then to the delight of the now captivated audience, fainted dead away. And I, Olivia, the forgotten sister, the overlooked bridesmaid, the queen of chaos, stood in the midst of it all, a quiet smile playing on my lips, a sense of sweet, sweet vindication filling my heart. The show had just begun. Okay, so the aftermath of the lingerie incident was pure chaos. Claire, bless her delicate sensibilities, had a meltdown of epic proportions, a symphony of tears, accusations, and threats of annulment that could be heard all the way to the parking lot. The groom, after regaining consciousness, stammered some incoherent excuses about a misunderstanding and a jealous ex, but the damage was done. The guests, their appetites for gossip, thoroughly satiated, dispersed in a flurry of whispers and knowing glances. My parents, bless their damage control instincts, went into overdrive. They flitted around the remaining guests, offering apologies, explanations, and enough free champagne to drown a small village. But the whispers followed them, the scandal clinging to the Peterson name like a bad perfume. Such a shame, I overheard one guest say. The Petersons always seemed so respectable. Well, her companion replied with a smirk, it seems even the golden child has a few tarnished feathers. I watched it all unfold, a quiet smile playing on my lips, a sense of satisfaction settling in my heart. This wasn't just about revenge, not anymore. It was about justice, about balance, about finally leveling the playing field. Claire, for once, was experiencing the consequences of her actions, the fallout from her self-absorbed worldview. And I, Olivia, the overlooked, the underestimated, the forgotten sister, was the one who had orchestrated it all. Damien, meanwhile, was thoroughly entertained. He watched the chaos with a twinkle in his eye, a genuine amusement that warmed me more than any champagne could. You're a force of nature, Olivia, he said, his voice a low chuckle, as we surveyed the wreckage of Claire's perfect wedding. I've never seen anything like it. Well, I said, my voice a playful purr, you did say you enjoyed a good spectacle. He grinned, his eyes sparkling with admiration. This wasn't just good, Olivia. This was legendary. And as we walked out of the reception hall, arm in arm, the whispers following us like a gentle breeze, I knew that this was just the beginning. The first chapter in a new story, a story where Olivia Peterson was no longer the spare, the afterthought, the invisible girl. This was my story now, a story of defiance, of resilience, of a woman who finally stepped out of the shadows and claimed her own spotlight. And with Damien by my side, the billionaire who saw me, the man who appreciated my chaos, I knew that this story was just getting started. Okay, so fake engagements, it turns out, are a lot of work. Who knew? After Claire's wedding turned circus, Damien and I were the hottest gossip in town. Reporters camped outside our apartments. Well, his mansion and my slightly less extravagant apartment. The society pages were filled with speculation, and every social event became a paparazzi-fueled frenzy. Smile for the cameras, darling, Damien would say, his arm linked with mine as we navigated the flashing lights and intrusive questions. Just try to keep your hand off my backside, Mr. Thorne, I'd retort, my voice a playful growl. This is supposed to be a respectable engagement, remember? He'd chuckle, his eyes twinkling. Where's the fun in respectable, Olivia? But beneath the public facade, the staged photo shoots, and the carefully crafted press releases, something else was happening. Something real. We spent hours together, not just at obligatory galas and charity events, but in quiet moments, stolen between the chaos, the whispers, the demands of our fake relationship. We'd have dinner at his mansion. The chef there made a mean spaghetti carbonara. Watch old movies. He had a surprisingly extensive collection of classic rom-coms. And talk, really talk, about our families, our dreams, our fears, the things that kept us up at night, the things that made us laugh until our sides ached. You know, Damien said one evening, as we were sprawled on the floor of his library, surrounded by stacks of dusty books, I never thought I'd find someone who could quote Shakespeare and discuss the merits of different pizza toppings with equal passion. I grinned, tossing a popcorn kernel at him. Well, Mr. Thorne, you never know what hidden depths a girl might possess. He caught the kernel in his mouth, his eyes sparkling with amusement. You're full of surprises, Olivia, and I'm enjoying every single one. The lines between fake and real started to blur. The hand-holding lingered a little longer, the goodnight kisses a little more passionate, the glances across crowded rooms a little more charged. We were playing a role, yes, but the script was starting to write itself, the characters taking on a life of their own. One evening, after a particularly grueling charity gala, the kind where you have to pretend to be interested in a silent auction for a diamond-encrusted dog collar, Damien walked me to my door. Thank you, I said, my voice a little softer than usual. For tonight, and for everything? He looked at me, his eyes searching mine, the usual playful glint replaced by something deeper, something more intense. Olivia, he began, his voice husky. And then he stopped, the moment broken by the ringing of my phone. I sighed, the spell shattered, the reality of our situation crashing back in. It's my mother, I said, glancing at the caller ID. Probably wants to know if I've picked out a china pattern yet. Damien chuckled, his hand reaching out to brush a stray strand of hair from my face. Duty calls, Cinderella, he said, his voice a gentle tease. But don't worry, your prince will be waiting. And as I watched him walk away, his silhouette disappearing into the night, I couldn't help but wonder if this fake engagement was just a prelude to a different kind of fairy tale. A story where the overlooked princess found her prince, not in a ballroom, but in the midst of chaos, laughter, and a shared love of quoting Shakespeare and debating pizza toppings. Okay, so confronting your family after years of being treated like a human houseplant? Not exactly a walk in the park, but with Damien by my side, figuratively, he was busy closing a deal in Dubai, which apparently involved a lot of yelling and throwing small electronic devices. I felt a surge of confidence, the kind that comes from knowing you're not just the other daughter anymore. I marched into my parents' living room, Claire trailing behind me like a sulky puppy. They were having their usual afternoon tea, the fine china clinking delicately, the air thick with the scent of expensive floral arrangements and repressed emotions. Mother, father, I announced, my voice firm, unwavering, we need to talk. My mother, bless her oblivious heart, blinked at me over her teacup. Olivia, darling, is something wrong? You look flustered. Flustered? I repeated, my voice rising. I've been overlooked, ignored, and treated like a potted plant for the past 20-odd years. And you think I'm flustered? Claire, never one to miss an opportunity for melodrama, gasped. Olivia, how can you say such things? We're family. Family? I scoffed, my voice laced with a bitterness that surprised even me. Since when? Since when have you treated me like family? You've always been so focused on Claire, on her achievements, her perfect life, that you never even bothered to see me, the real me. My father, bless his attempt at intervention, cleared his throat. Olivia, sweetie, I'm sure you're exaggerating. We love you both equally. Equally? I laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. Really? Then why was I replaced as maid of honor? Why was I always the afterthought, the spare, the invisible girl in the Peterson family portrait? The silence hung heavy in the air, the only sound the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. My mother, her carefully composed facade finally cracking, set down her teacup with a clatter. Olivia, she said, her voice sharp, defensive, you're being dramatic. Claire is the one getting married, the one with the successful career, the one who's making something of her life. You're just what? I challenged, my eyes blazing. Just Olivia? Just the other daughter? Just the one who's not good enough? Claire, sensing a shift in the power dynamic, finally spoke up. Olivia, I'm sorry. I didn't realize. I never meant to hurt you. Her apology, though hesitant, held a flicker of genuine remorse. But it wasn't enough. Not after years of neglect, of being treated like a second-class citizen in my own family. Sorry isn't enough, Claire, I said, my voice softening but firm. I need you to see me, to hear me, to understand the pain you've caused. My parents, bless their stubborn hearts, remained silent, their faces etched with a mixture of disapproval and denial. They couldn't or wouldn't acknowledge their own role in this, their own complicity in the years of emotional neglect. I'm not the girl you think I am, I continued, my voice gaining strength with every word. I'm not the spare, the afterthought, the invisible girl. I'm Olivia. And I'm done living in your shadow. I turned to leave, a sense of closure washing over me. This wasn't about winning their approval, their love, their validation. This was about finding my own, about claiming my own space, my own voice, my own identity. Olivia, Claire called out, her voice laced with a newfound uncertainty. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. Yes? I I'm proud of you, she said, her voice barely a whisper, for standing up for yourself, for, for being you. I smiled, a genuine smile that reached my eyes. Thank you, Claire, I said. That, that means more than you know. And as I walked out of the house, the sunlight warm on my face, the future stretching before me like an open road, I knew that I had finally broken free. Free from the expectations, the comparisons, the years of feeling inadequate and unseen. I was Olivia, and I was finally truly my own person. Okay, so after the wedding turned media frenzy, life got interesting. The fake engagement with Damien was suddenly very real to the outside world, and we were officially a thing, which, was a little awkward at first. Like, do we hold hands in public? Do we kiss? Do we need to start coordinating our outfits? Thankfully, Damien had excellent taste, so that last one wasn't too painful. But beneath the surface of public appearances and staged photo shoots, something real was blossoming between us. We spent more time together, not just at obligatory galas and red carpet events, but in quiet moments, stolen between the chaos. We explored the city, discovering hidden cafes and quirky bookstores, sharing secrets and dreams under the twinkling city lights. We laughed, we argued, mostly about the merits of pineapple on pizza, and we genuinely connected. We talked about everything and nothing, from our childhoods and our families to our hopes and fears for the future. We discovered shared passions for old movies, classic literature, and surprisingly competitive mini golf. We debated the merits of different coffee brewing methods, and he introduced me to the joys of single malt scotch, which, let's be honest, I initially found repulsive but eventually grew to appreciate. We challenged each other, pushed each other to grow, and celebrated each other's successes, both big and small. We built a connection that went beyond the superficiality of our fake engagement, a bond that was forged in laughter, vulnerability, and genuine affection. Damien said one evening, as we were curled up on his couch, watching some cheesy rom-com. This fake engagement has taken on a life of its own. I chuckled, leaning my head on his shoulder. Tell me about it. My mother keeps sending me bridal magazines. I think she's secretly hoping we'll elope. He grinned, his arm tightening around me. And what do you think? Should we elope? I looked at him, my heart skipping a beat. The playful glint in his eyes was replaced by something softer, something more intense. I don't know, I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. The truth was, I was falling for him. Hard. His wit, his charm, his genuine kindness, his ability to see me, the real me, beneath the layers of insecurity and self-doubt. It was all intoxicating, but I was also terrified of repeating the patterns of the past, of being overlooked, undervalued, of being just another accessory in his glamorous life. Olivia, he said, his voice husky, his eyes searching mine. And then, just like before, the moment was broken, this time by a phone call. It was Claire. Olivia, she said, her voice hesitant, I wanted to talk. We met the next day at a quiet cafe, the kind where you can actually hear yourself think. Claire was different, softer, more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. The wedding fallout had clearly taken its toll. I'm sorry, Olivia, she said, her eyes filled with regret. For everything. For the wedding, for everything. I nodded, my heart aching for the sister I never really knew. I know, Claire, I said, my voice gentle. I know. We talked for hours, finally breaking through the years of unspoken resentments and buried hurts. She confessed her own insecurities, her own struggles to live up to the golden child image, the pressure she felt to be perfect. And I, in turn, shared my own pain, my own feelings of inadequacy, my own longing for acceptance. It wasn't a magical reconciliation, a sudden shift from rivals to best friends. But it was a start, a tentative bridge built across the chasm of our shared past. And as we parted ways, a fragile truce settling between us, I knew that we were finally on the path to healing, to understanding, to a sisterhood that was built on something real, something genuine, something that wasn't based on competition or comparison, but on mutual respect and love. And as for Damien and me, Well, our fake engagement eventually morphed into something very real. The public appearances became less about playing a role and more about celebrating our love. The stolen moments turned into shared dreams, the laughter into whispered promises, the glances into something deeper, something lasting. He saw me, the real me, the woman I was, the woman I was becoming. He loved my wit, my defiance, my vulnerability, my strength. He challenged me, supported me, and celebrated my triumphs, both big and small. And he showed me, in a million small ways, that I was worthy of love, worthy of happiness, worthy of being seen, truly seen, for who I was, not who I was supposed to be. And as I stood beside him, not as his fake fiance, but as his partner, his equal, his love, I knew that I had finally found my place, not in his shadow, but in his light. I had found my own voice, my own strength, my own happiness. And it wasn't about revenge or proving anything to anyone. It was about reclaiming my life, embracing my true self, and building a future filled with love, laughter, and the unwavering belief that I, Olivia Peterson, was finally truly enough.